this meeting of the Stewartville Planning and Zoning Commission to order on this Wednesday, November 6, 2019. The Planning and Zoning Commission would like to welcome everybody tonight. I think it's terrific to see this type of turnout. It is truly government in action. So again, thank you all for coming out tonight. For those that haven't been to a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting before, we are one step in the overall process for the type of requests that we will be hearing tonight. And we ultimately make our recommendations to the City Council. As a reminder, we are required to hold these types of hearings. I think it might be beneficial if we start off and we do some introductions of both the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as our city staff that are here tonight. Again, my name is Tony Lerman. I am the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission this year. And from left to right, if we could just introduce ourselves.
Okay. Randy Swanson, I am a resident of Stewartville.
Tom Stanley.
Brian Haas, resident of Stewartville, vice chair.
Bob Robertson.
Maren Schroeder.
Brent Meyer, Stewartville City Council.
I'm Cheryl Rader, your city clerk.
Melanie West, city attorney.
Jenna Obernolte, city engineer.
Bill Schimmel, city administrator.
And I know we also have Sheriff Torgerson here in attendance tonight, as well as the superintendent of schools here as well. So again, welcome to everybody. We are here tonight to discuss and review a requested zoning amendment, GDP, preliminary plat, and a conditional use permit. There is a public notice, and I will go ahead and I'll read that now. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission will conduct a public hearing at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, November 6, 2019 at the Stewartville Civic Center, 120 City Center, Stewartville, for the purpose of considering the following: Knolls of Northridge subdivision, conditional use permit per section 1335.04.H, zone change, map amendment R1 to R3, GDP amendment, preliminary plat approval. The applicant is GCP Stewartville LLC, otherwise known as Sun Communities. The legal description is for Outlot A and Outlot B, the estates of Northridge in parcels 54.28.12.073689, and there's a bunch that come along after that as well that I could continue reading, but I'll spare everybody that. And that is in Stewartville, Olmsted County, Minnesota. If approved, the applicant will move forward with the expansion of a manufactured home park, and again, written or oral statements shall be considered. The commission has already received a number of written comments, and those are included in their packet tonight. Just wanted to provide a few other reminders. We will have a presentation to start the meeting tonight, and we will have our city attorney, Melanie Leth, and who will provide us some background information about our topic tonight. We'll also hear from Sheila Cascaden, who's on the Minnesota Governor's Task Force on Housing. And really our purpose in inviting some of those preliminary comments as part of the presentation tonight is not only to provide some additional perspective for those in attendance tonight, but honestly to provide that information to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the city staff. I think that will be beneficial for everybody. And after that, we would then open it up for the public hearing to hear those comments a little bit later in the meeting tonight. Once we do open up that public hearing, I will request that comments are kept to 4 minutes maximum. We will be keeping track of that, and it is if an individual does reach or near that 4-minute mark, we will give them a heads up that they are nearing their time. Of course, we would ask that any comments that are presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight are respectful. We would ask that you please direct those to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And with that, I would like to invite our city attorney, Melanie, to provide us with some background information. Melanie?
Thank you. Thanks, Tony. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to provide everyone with some background information with regard to what cities can and cannot regulate with regard to manufactured home parks. The Minnesota Department of Health Health is the entity that licenses and regulates manufactured home parks. That's pursuant to state and administrative law. The law requires that cities must allow a manufactured home park as a conditional use in any zoning district that allows the construction or placement of a building used or intended to be used by 2 or more families, which is essentially medium to high residential zones. The statutory site on that is Minnesota Statute 462.357. So even if the city's ordinance didn't list a manufactured home park as a permitted conditional use, the state law would dictate that if it was a medium to high residential zoning district, that a manufactured home park would be an allowable conditional use pursuant to Minnesota law. Furthermore, cities are not allowed to prohibit manufactured homes within the city that are built in conformance with the Manufactured Home Building Code and in compliance with all other zoning ordinances. That again is set forth in Minnesota Statute Section 462.357. So a city can't regulate manufactured homes more strictly than it does any other single-family home within a zoning district. Essentially, the city cannot treat manufactured homes differently than single-family homes in the same zoning district. Cities can apply architectural and aesthetic requirements to manufactured homes, but again, only if those same conditions apply to other single-family homes within the same zoning district. What cities can do, however, is regulate manufactured home parks as conditional uses. And the conditional use ordinance in the city's ordinances is found at chapter 13. It's specifically ordinance 1310.13 that talks about what the city's requirements are, what's required to be met in order to obtain a conditional use permit. Assuming that those requirements are met, then the city can impose conditions deemed necessary to meet the city's zoning standards to protect the best interest of the surrounding area or the city as a whole. And we've listed what some of those conditions are here. A, B, C, it goes through F. D, E, and F are listed on the next page. Those are set forth in the city's ordinance 1310.13 in subdivision A. So you can find those for your own reference in the city's ordinances. And then last, there are other city ordinances in the zoning chapter, specifically 1375.18 and 1375.19, that outline some additional regulations on manufactured home parks. And those are set forth here and on the following page. It's actually 2 more pages. So I just wanted to highlight some of those regulations that would apply to a manufactured home park if conditional use permit is recommended and ultimately granted. That's all I have, Tony.
Thank you, Melanie. I know, or I believe Sheila is here this evening to provide us some additional comments. Sheila, thank you.
Well, I am here, you want me to use my microphone? I think there's a PowerPoint to come. I'm here not to comment on the matter that's before you tonight. I'm here because last year, and actually today, I was at an all-day conference in Northfield about affordable housing, affordable workforce housing. And last year, I had the privilege of serving on the Housing Task Force that looked at the housing challenges that Minnesota faces statewide. And so I'm really here to talk to you a little bit about what we're facing as a state, why we need more places to call home, and why we need a variety of different kinds of homes for Minnesotans. And I have a little bit of data for you specific to Olmsted County. And I guess I should have anticipated there'd be a lot of people here today, but I'll give this, this will be, ladies and gentlemen, most of this that in this handout will be in this PowerPoint as well. So if we could go to the next slide. Last year, the governor convened a task force that met more than 30 times over 6 months. We went all around the state. We even had one of our major hearings in Austin last year. And we really looked at what are we going to do as a state about our lack of affordable housing. And we ended up with 6 kind of broad goals, which I'm not going to bore you with, but I really want to call out some of our principal findings for your consideration as you look at this, as you look at Stewartville's future and what you want to do about affordable housing. So the next slide, please, will show you that one of the things that's happened to all of us, I look at this audience and I think, well, I've been in my home, my particular home, for a long time. And if you haven't been in the housing market in the last 5 or 10 years, you would be kind of astonished to see what's happened to the price of housing. In Olmsted County right now, to build, I just heard about Bigelow Homes presented this today up in Northfield. It's about $248,000 to build a starter home now in Olmsted County. And that is, beyond the price point that most of us can afford. And so that becomes a really big problem for how we house our workforce, how we grow our communities, and how we have a strong economy. So one of the things that happened is that when 2008, when we had the big recession, we had a huge crash in the number of housing units that were built, and we had a lot of foreclosures, and builders just quit building because people couldn't afford to buy. And so we estimate right now, across the state of Minnesota, we're about 52,000 homes short of what our current need is. We're currently building about 20,000 homes a year, but we need at least 10,000 more just to kind of keep up with our population growth, and we are way behind in what we need. And so we lose 2,000 or 3,000 units a year because houses are a finite commodity. They eventually get so old they're not habitable anymore. And so we have had a big drop in construction after the big recession. And one of the things that's a driver for housing right now is that we lost a lot of those construction workers. Starting 10 years ago, if there weren't jobs in the field, they left. I heard this morning that 10 years ago we had something like 17 builders in Olmsted County for building homes. We're down to 7. And so we don't even have, in those that do have the funds, they don't have the builders available to build single-family homes or many times multi-family homes. So if you go to the next slide, excuse me, I think we missed one here, didn't we? Oh, no, that's good. Go to that one. So, what has happened to us as a state is that our incomes went up a little bit, but our housing costs went up a lot. So if you had a high school diploma and you had an income of $42,000 in 10 years ago, you maybe go up about 3% to $44,000. But your rent, which was $800 before, will now be about $1,100. If you had a college degree and you could afford to buy your house, not that you wouldn't if you only had a high school degree, but the median home price was $171,000 20 years ago. Now it's $252,000. But that's a 47% change. But your income probably only went up about 6%. And so people are literally being priced out of the housing marketplace. The next one, please. So here's what's happening. We've got 5 major trends. We have more population. Our population's grown up about 5%. Twin Cities have grown up almost 7%. We're short of houses, partly because of that recession, and now we have population growth. We're not keeping up. They estimate that regulatory costs have added about 17% to home prices for those homes that are built. And then we changed our preferences of what we liked. I'm in the baby boom generation. I grew up in a 2-bedroom house, maybe 24 square feet with little expansion as a family room my dad built upstairs. It wasn't built with a garage, had a gravel driveway. Over time, we made improvements to those homes. Now what people expect is 3 times larger. The homes that people are building now are about 3 times larger than the homes that they built in 1950, which of course also drives up costs. And so what we're finding right now is that if you are in a household and you have an income of below $72,000, that's 75% of the people in the rental market, but only 20% can afford to build a home. So what are we going to do? So let's look at Olmsted County specifically. So we have about 26% of our residents in Olmsted County are renters, about 74% own homes. We're unusual in the state of Minnesota compared to many other states. We have stronger home ownership. And that's really important for us as families because for most of us, our biggest source of wealth is the equity we build up in our home over time. So home ownership is also a pathway for us as we reach retirement age that we have some wealth, some value for us to be able to live independently and support ourselves in retirement. So we now have lots and lots of people who can't afford. This is a little bit of a repeat. This data that I'm showing you here came from the Minnesota Housing Partnership. They did a county-by-county comparison on these housing facts, so some of this repeats a little bit. But if you look at the 12% increase in rent, 16% increase in values, and the incomes are not keeping pace. So we have more and more people who are in spending more than they should on their home to be able to stay in a home. And that has a lot of implications for the stability of our families and our communities. So what they talk about is you should be spending roughly 30% of your income for the cost of your housing. And if you have a chance to look at this graph, you'll see that more and more people are 68% of the people who are earning $20,000 to $34,000 a year are cost burdened, even if they own their own home. And if $35,000 to $50,000, 34% are cost burdened. And look at our seniors, half of our seniors are cost burdened. That means that they're spending, and severely cost burdened means you're spending 50% of your income or more just for your housing. And so that certainly affects what else you can do, but your food, clothing, every other kind of expense in your family. So let's look at the next one. So here's the thing that I think is really important for us to keep in mind. When we talk about affordable housing, we're talking about working people. Lots of times people think we're not, but we look at this. We're looking at people who work in retail sales, what their average income is, registered nurses, food preps personnel. We have a lot of people in our county who work in the service industries that they don't necessarily pay that well. But a registered nurse is pretty well, but what's affordable for a house? So it's estimated that to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Olmsted County, you have to have an income of about $34,000 a year. If you work in retail sales, if you're a PCA, if you work in food prep, if you work as a cashier, if you work as a home health aide, as a personal care aide, you're not reaching that $34,000 income. And then if you want to have a median value home, you have to be earning at least $56,000 in our county. And so how does that impact the discussion that you're having before you today? Let's look out. So we know that our housing stock doesn't meet the needs of a growing Minnesota. It simply doesn't. And so we need a variety of housing options for people. Our most affordable homes are really already built. But as our population grows and we don't have enough supply, we need more housing. And so manufactured homes have become part of the solution. Generally, manufactured homes are not the kind of homes that manufactured homes have changed a lot since the 70s, for instance, or the 80s, where they were really time-limited, kind of had a shelf life, and they would get to the place that they were no longer really habitable in a short period of time. Now manufactured homes are often built as well or better than stick-built homes. So I'll use the example of my brother who just retired, had a beautiful home in Chisago City and decided that they wanted to move further north into the lake country. So he bought a home up on Lake Wabato, doesn't it sound like Wobegon? Wabato. And he had his house inspected, and he discovered it was a manufactured home. And the housing inspector that came through said he could not believe how well built that house was. The trusses, the number of trusses in the attic, how well built it was, it, just passed inspection with flying colors. So my brother started to remodel the house. And what he said to me is he couldn't believe what it was like to remodel that house compared to the stick-built house he moved out of, because since it's been transported, everything is screwed into the walls. It is not just nailed in. It has been constructed with extra care and extra durability because it has to be transported. And so I think sometimes we have these images of the old, sad trailer homes that no longer, that have reached their life expectancy. Every home has a life expectancy if not maintained. And so some of the things that you can do if you look to whether or not what you're going to do in terms of conditional use, what are the things that you can do that make these manufactured homes much like stick-built homes? And I haven't really looked at the set of proposals before you, but increasingly manufactured homes are much like a stick-built home in terms of the size, the dimensions, the design, the qualities of the house. And some of that you can manage by your ordinances of what you will and will not allow. And so some of the issues also then, when I looked at the little map that you just passed out, is that the density that you really want to allow with what's being proposed? Is that required, or are you going to put some conditions on it? Are you going to build those buffers so that it's kind of a smooth transition from one kind of stick-built home neighborhood into the manufactured home neighborhood? If you've ever been in the neighborhood behind Shops on Main as you go into Rochester between 40th and 48th, most of those are manufactured homes. And I would guess if you drove through that neighborhood, you would just see, well, these are smaller homes on smaller lots, but you would not assume that they were manufactured homes, because we have a mental image of what a manufactured home looks like that doesn't necessarily fit today's reality. So as we as Minnesotans, put in the next one please, as we look to our future, if we want to have really vibrant communities, if we want to have families that can really do well, our homes are the basis on which we all, if we don't have a good home to live in, if we don't have a stable place to live, it really affects our family lives, it affects our communities in many, many ways. So the governor's task force recommended that we have to commit to homes as a priority for the entire state. We have to try and build homes to meet the demand for the Minnesotans who live here of what we need for homes. And we need a public commitment. You're part of a public body here. We need a public commitment to meet the urgent need for more homes in our state. We have to preserve the homes we have. What are we doing to keep the homes we already have, especially those that are most affordable? We need to build more homes. We need to build about 300,000 homes across the state of Minnesota in the next 10 years. And we need a variety of homes. We need the townhomes. We need the condos. We need the manufactured homes. We need the stick-built homes. We need a variety of homes to meet different income levels and different family needs. And that, when we do that, we increase stability for families, and we increase stability for them to have predictable costs for their housing. And we also then need to build, the task force talks about linking homes and services and supporting and strengthening home ownership. Because as I said early on, when we own our own homes, that is the primary way that we build wealth. And manufactured homes now are not as the kind of expendable or short life cycle homes that they once were. So as you look at your decision about Stewartville, who's growing, our whole economy and the whole county is growing, we need more homes. How do we accommodate the need for all of our workforce to have homes homes that they can afford to live in and be active and productive members of our communities. So I realize I said earlier, I'm not here to advocate for you for a particular decision, but I think the decision you make is in the context of what does Minnesota need? We need more homes. We need homes of a variety of prices and a variety of choices, so that whether you're starting out as a young family or you're to my end of life where you're looking at a smaller home, we have choices that we can afford and to live on the incomes that we have. So I don't know if that's at all helpful to you. Bill thought it might be useful to have a little bit of background about where we are as the state, where we are as our county. And I just would say I've been, we are working hard in Homestead County through the Housing and Development Authority. You have your own for Stewartville, through the First Homes Project. We have a significant shortage of affordable workforce housing, and we need to all pull together to try and change that trajectory for our county and our communities. Bill, I don't know if you want me to stand for any questions. I just would offer my comments today as you're beginning to deliberate. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sheila. I would like to move on with the agenda this evening and invite the representative of the applicant up for a presentation. And Justin, if you'd like to come to the podium from the Atwell Group.
I'd like to make a motion. It's really offensive to me when I have people speaking to me and I'm looking at their back. Can we turn the podium around so I can see your face?
Unfortunately, we can't do that because we will ask that everybody be addressing the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight.
Okay, well, podium over there would be a lot more effective. It just gives a really strong message when we're looking at the speaker's back.
Okay, I guess I would open that up to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Does anybody have any concerns if we would
Maybe we could try it right here,
move the podium over?
just because we need the camera to be able to see the speakers. Some of you will still have your back to us, but we'll do the best we can.
Justin, the floor is yours. Thank you.
And then really quick, just a second, Steve Borker, who was a former sheriff, now serves on a housing coalition board for this region. He also submitted comments, so we'll have those available for anyone. He had wanted to address things more locally, and he's specifically been down here to the park and the subdivision, and so his comments for the board were, how as a community can we be creative in the future plans, similar to what Sheila brought up, but similar to how we all work together on putting these kind of plans together. So we'll have those available. If anyone needs those or wants those for follow-up, we'll make them available to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And also, thank you, Sheila. That was very helpful and informative. First off, my name is Justin Crable. I work with Atwell. My firm is a land development consulting firm, and I have an office in Chicago, Illinois. I'm a consultant to Sun Communities. My company provided the civil engineering design, the surveying, and landscape architecture design for this project. With me tonight, back in the audience, I have Mr. Kevin Bennett. He's the Division Vice President of Sun Communities. I have Howard Roston, our attorney with Frederickson and Byron. Also have our traffic consultant, Eric Sieberle, and also Chelsea Bannister of the Sun Communities. And with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about our project here. As you guys know, we're looking to expand the existing Southern Hills Protection Home community. Sun sees a very strong demand, as Sheila was alluding to there and discussed a minute ago, for affordable housing in this city. And we're proposing to expand the community by 300 sites. We're here, as was mentioned earlier, but to reiterate, to rezone a portion of the project area from R1 to R3. It would be the northwesterly portion of the project there, up next to I-90. We're here for a conditional use approval to expand the existing manufactured home community into the existing R3 district. We're here for an approval of the general development plan. And we're also here for an approval of the preliminary subdivision plan. So what the slide you're looking at here shows is back in 2000, the city of Stewartville approved a general development plan for a similar development. This project was a manufactured home project, just like it is today. The layout's very consistent with what you see today. A couple things I want to point out about this particular general development plan is that there was 300 sites, I'm sorry, let me back up 1 second here. 281 sites on 53.89 acres for a density of 5.2 units per acre. Next slide, please. Our project is 300 sites on 69.7 acres for a density of 4.3 units per acre, which is nearly a decrease of 1 unit per acre. A couple things to point out about our plan. We have an 80-foot wide public right-of-way and a public street that we dedicated that will connect 20th Street Northwest to future development opportunities to the north. You can see that kind of snaking through the middle of the land plan there. So both our plan and the previous GDP had that same design. Our plan includes sidewalks down that public right-of-way to connect, again, the north to the south. We have 1.5 acres right in the central portion of the project, that triangular green space you see there, that's set aside for park space for the community. We have 5.3 acres of open space with this plan, which is actually double what the zoning ordinance requires. We have a 3,500 square foot, actually it's 3,600 square foot storm shelter, it's hard to see, but it's right also just north of that central park area. And we also are going to have off-street parking located throughout the project. You know, when we first came to meet with the city and talk about our plan, they offered up some suggestions to us to help, to help with building this in the community and help people embrace the project. So a couple of things that they suggested on that west lot line next to the Peterson subdivision. If we could go to the next slide there. They asked us to take a look at that buffering. And the zoning code only requires a 10-foot wide buffer between the manufactured home community and the single-family development. We've doubled that to 20 feet. We've got a 20-foot wide landscape buffer in there. The zoning code only requires us to set our manufactured homes back 20 feet from the site, from the property line. We're at 45 feet. We've got 137 trees, canopy, evergreen, and understory trees on that west lot line in that buffer space. So I think what you're seeing here, it's tough to see, and I brought some printouts that I can hand out. In the foreground, what you're seeing there is the installation height of those plants, and in the background, again, it's ghosted out. It's a little gray, but that's what the mature size is going to be. So you can kind of get a sense of what that buffer might look like. One of the things the city had asked us to do was take a look at putting some off-street parking. If you could go back one slide, please. Two slides, I'm sorry. So there's going to be off-street parking areas. There's some at the park, there's some at the storm shelter, and there's some sprinkled throughout kind of the northwest side of the development in the kind of closer to the I-90 corridor there. Off-street parking to the tune of about 50 extra parking spaces that kind of are above and beyond what we're required to provide. Okay, if you go back 2 slides forward, please. One other thing that I wanted to point out that we're doing as part of this project, which is going to be pretty significant to anybody that owns a house there on Saunty Lane, is what this drawing shows is that existing agricultural fields got about 25 acres that drain today towards those houses. I think originally, the original general development plan had contemplated having all that drainage area end up in the existing basin in the Peterson subdivision. So when we had our surveyors out here surveying the property, they talked with a couple of homeowners on Saunty Lane that mentioned they had rear yard drainage issues. There's water ponding in their rear yard and flooding, and so I think if we push forward 1 slide, you'll see our proposed development plan. It's hard to see, but there's a very small strip of land along the west property line there. That's all that's going to be drained. So we go from 23 acres of drainage area down to 2, or less than 2 really. So I think that, we're trying to do what we can to make sure we have a good project here, and have it fit in with the community. And if we could go forward one slide. Our schedule is this: we're looking to develop this project in 3 phases. The first phase is in green, so that'd be 128 sites, and once that phase is completed, the next phase would be at the northeast corner of the project area. That's in red, 93 sites, and the very last phase would be at the northwest corner in blue, which would be 79 sites. So I guess what I'd like to say is we're probably looking at a 3 to 5 year build-out period, given the demand that we saw in the last expansion. And with that, I'd like to move to the next topic and have our traffic consultant come and discuss the findings of his report here for a couple slides. Eric?
Commission members. Our firm was brought in to do a traffic study for the proposed development of 300 units of manufactured homes. In a typical traffic forecasting and traffic study, there's several steps. The first one, you estimate trip generation from your proposed development using typical numbers that are published by the Institute of Traffic Engineering. We did that for 300 units of manufactured homes, and the estimated daily trips is just about 2,000 trips. In the peak hours, there's 123 trips that are estimated. Those are in the AM peak, that's separated into peak vehicles coming into the development, vehicles going out of the development. And then in the PM peak hour, 178 trips are estimated to be generated by the site, 110 in and 68 out. The next step in the traffic forecasting process is to distribute that onto the local roadways. There were distribution percentages that were identified based on the existing traffic patterns and origins and destinations, schools, future uses in the area. They're shown up here. So then you basically take those trips generated, daily trips, peak hour trips, and distribute them throughout the roadway network in the area and on to 63 and throughout the area. This is not able to be seen right now, but we went out and we took counts on April 9th of this year. That's a Tuesday. School was in session. It was a normal day, good weather, and we identified the different traffic volumes, peak hour traffic volumes at the different intersections that we are shown on this slide. And then what we do is we take our trips generated and distribute it along the roadway, and we add them to those existing trips and add some background growth in based on expected growth of other undeveloped properties in the area and commercial areas and businesses, all that. So we had scenarios of our existing condition. We had, with the first build out, 2021, and we had 2026, and we compared the no build of what the traffic would look like without the proposed development compared to what it would look like with the trips on the roadways from that development. Next one, please. Can't see this one either. All included in a traffic study that I do believe we've received comments from some of the public, and it was made public. So this shows those trips that go through the different intersections that we studied that are just generated by this proposed development, if it were to be there. In our findings, we made a traffic model using software that shows cars driving around the roadways during the peak hours. Our findings were that 20th Street Northwest, currently the ADT, average daily traffic volume of that roadway is 3,650. This project, about 2,000 trips are expected to be generated by this development, so it would include 2,000 trips on that roadway going west, going east to their eventual origin and destination. The capacity for a 2-lane local road, 8 to 10, a road like that, sometimes you get them up to 12, 14,000. So there is a lot of capacity in that roadway. to handle this development and future development. The Trunk Highway 63 and 20th Street intersection was kind of the intersection of primary concern. MnDOT was interested in that one since Trunk Highway 63 is their road, and the city was interested in that one. And that one currently operates at a level of service B or C, which that's just a grade level of delay per vehicle. A is really good, F is really bad. A B or C, which in this intersection is skewed by the people on 63 because they get all the green time on that traffic signal, and then the minor approaches on 20th Street get less and they have to share. It's split phase, so one side goes and the other side goes. But overall, it operates in an acceptable manner according to MnDOT, according to general traffic engineering standards. Like it says up there, the minor approach has extended delay just due to the fact that it's a longer cycle and green time is important to Trunk Highway 63, so they have to sit and wait while the majority of the traffic passes through or turns onto Wilton Street. The development-related trips, as we model that into the future, are expected to increase delay at that intersection by about 3 or 4 seconds into the 2021 build condition, 3 or 4 seconds per vehicle on average during the busiest time of the day. And the southbound left turn movement is the poorest operating movement, and that's coming south on 63 and heading to the east on 20th. So that's not really related to this development, but that's the movement that experiences the longest delay. And that delay can be controlled by the signal timing that MnDOT puts into their signals, so they could suddenly make that really good one day, taking away time from another movement. But at the time, with the signal timing they use, that's the movement that has the poorest operation. But still, with the proposed development added on, that intersection is expected to operate not too much different than it does today, and acceptably in traffic engineering standards.
Okay, thank you, Eric. What I want to do is just close with a couple slides here. As Sheila was mentioning, the product here is going to be very consistent and similar to what you can see out there for the last expansion. This is the type of units that we will be building here. Next slide. Here's the design flavor of what some of the interiors could potentially look like. Next slide. And again, some more examples of what those interiors might look like. Next slide. And then this is kind of the design language or the inspirational photos for what our open space will become. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to the Planning Commission.
Presentation, appreciate that. And now at this point, I think we will go ahead and we will open up the public comment period. So we now have opened up the open comment period for the public. So if anybody would like to come up and address this project at the podium, you can do so now. I would just again offer one reminder to please direct comments to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Name and address too.
And if you could provide your name and address, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is James Rutell. I live at 2211 Sankey Lane Northwest. I just want to express some of the concerns that I have about the development of the manufactured homes that are planning on going in. The first one, and I know it's very selfish, but I know the value of my property is going to go down, the value of my house is going to go down once he's coming in. I've talked to my realtor about it, and he said, yeah, it is going to go down. I understand that manufactured homes are necessary to help address the issues of the housing in our community. But what I don't know is, will the value of the manufactured homes continue to go up like my home, or will it be similar to the trailer parks that we have where the value continues to go down? The other question I have is, how many of these are going to be rented versus how many are going to be purchased? My guess is if they're purchased, the value might stay steady. But if they're rented, it's going to go down. My experience with rental properties is the first generation or two of people moving in, moving out, it's usually a good group of people because the quality of the home is in good shape, people want to take care of it. However, after a couple generations come and go, the quality and the upkeep of the property starts to decrease. And when that happens, then the value of them will start going down. Another concern that I have is how the school system is going to be able to accommodate all these additional students coming in. I understand Stewartville has open enrollment, but right now it's capped, which means that it can't really accept all the students that it could. If that's the case, then how are they going to accommodate, let's say, even another 100 new students? And we just passed a levy, so now my concern is, okay, we just passed a levy for the schools, so means my taxes are going up. All right, now we've got a whole bunch more kids coming in. All right, how's the school system going to be able to handle that? The only solution I see is that they're going to have to build additional buildings, they have to do additions. Regardless, there's going to have to be an additional levy to help pay for that, which means my taxes are going to be going back up again. Another concern that I have is the infrastructure and the burden that this is going to place on it. Even with the additional new manufactured homes that have gone in, I've already noticed a decrease in my water pressure. It may seem really minor, but that's just something that I've noticed. Also, with the additional traffic, will 20th Street be rebuilt? Because right now, it's not in very good shape. I mean, it's not receiving a lot of traffic. The guy that was just explaining our traffic, he's looking at 3,600 cars, or 3,600 people going up and down it, where now he's looking at an additional almost 2,000. That's a significant increase. And 20th Street isn't smooth by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm wondering what kind of wear and tear it's going to put on it as well. Obviously, I have a lot of concerns about this, and I just wanted to present it to you. I just want to thank you for your time.
For your time, appreciate that. Would invite another speaker to the podium if you would like. If you can provide your name and address, thank you.
Hi, J.P. Federal Fund Hockey Miners Law. Jim. Okay, so we've talked about the fact that there's going to be a berm, and it's going to be trees. Trees take time to grow. And aesthetically pleasing as a nice little tree is, it does take years to grow. And in that soil lot, there's a lot of clay, so it takes even longer. I would like to see a fence line as well. And like Jim said, our water pressure has gone down, and we've lived up there twice as long as Jim has. And every time a new addition, whether it's a house in the lower level or the new trailers, our water pressure is maybe gone down a third in the last 10 years. And that's a lot. And our house prices will decrease. And you work hard to own a home. You work hard to upkeep your home. You want your home to increase in value and not depreciate. You don't want to lose value in something you worked hard to obtain. And my house values will go down when those trailers go in, no matter how beautiful they are. There's still a stigma with mobile homes, and we're not talking about the fact that they're built less with, they're great quality. I know people that live in some of them. They love them. And the old mobile homes are definitely less quality. The new ones, they're being built with, they're not stick houses anymore. But they're still mobile homes. And the development that she was talking about in Rochester, they have larger lots. They look more like a residential area. If their lots are going to be a little bit larger, they're going to go with the same pattern on how our homes are built. instead of row, where it looks like a mobile home. I think that would be a lot better. Obviously, they're gonna go in, it's already built. But the aesthetics have gotta be there.
Hi, Jennifer Newell Kramer, 603 23rd Street. I live in Southern Hills. It's not well kept. Our roads are horrible. The small stretch right in front of my house just got redone. I've needed a new driveway since I moved in almost 5 years ago. I was told I wasn't going to get a driveway because of trees that needed to be removed. Those trees still are there, minus the one that was almost coming out of the ground right behind my house this spring once the ground thawed. I took pictures, submitted it to the manager, who was Jeremy at the time, and it was removed about a month later. Luckily, no storms came, so the tree didn't fall on my house. But 2 houses down from me, one of the trees that was slated to be moved 3 years ago fell on their house. There's tons of dead trees. The roads, you can't even drive down without hitting a pothole. Now that it's winter, they didn't plow till 8:30, 9 o'clock this morning. If you're gonna add all this new property and mobile homes, take care of what's there first.
I would just ask that they withhold your applause, please. Thank you.
Now, like I said, I've only lived there 4 or 5 years this time. I grew up on 509 22nd Street Northwest in Southern Hills from 1991 till 1999. I moved out. I moved back in to Southern Hills for a few years, 2004 for a few years. I don't know when I left. Long story short, back then, it was managed well. There were people who, the managers and maintenance actually took care of things. Since moving in 4 or 5 years ago, I've steadily watched everything decline. Like I said, I can't even barely walk in my driveway. At the end of Lark Lane, the gentleman who owns the double wide had to dig a trench because his driveway is always under 4 inches of water. Several other people who live in the trailer court, please come up here and explain what is going on in the current mobile home park. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I will add, Maren, a commission member, is keeping track of the time, and she will give a note as you're coming up to your time, so I wanted to add that in there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wendy Tim. I'm also on 23rd Street Northwest, and I want to agree with what was just said. What I find is the elevation to the west and to the south is higher, so all the water is congregating, rushing down to 23rd Street, and if it's a high rain event, we actually get flooding of the ponds where it's overflowing and rushing down the street. One time I thought a car was going to get washed away. I actually sent pictures of that to your committee so that you can see what actually happens. So storm drainage is a big concern of mine. The ponds that are there are not being maintained. So they are not really, as they're filling in with vegetation, they're not as effective. And I'm seeing with the rain events, it's getting worse. So my concern is this new area is also going to be higher elevation, so we're going to again get all that runoff heading to the east, and we're going to have more problems. Then another concern I have is when the last phase was done, there was no increase in parkland or playground. So the small, tiny playground that they have right now on 23rd Street especially in summer, is just overloaded with kids that are running in the street, and I worry about safety, so I'm glad to see that they have advocated this parkland, but I want to make sure that that's also going to have playground equipment and be available for children to safely play and not be in the streets where they're at danger of being injured. And then parking is another issue. You know, I know that the newer parts of the development supposedly have 3 slots in the driveway for cars, but even though the street signs say no parking on the street, there's plenty of parking on the street. If you have a truck on either side, I'm worried that it's even hard for me to get through with my small car, and you know, a fire truck would have a hard time clearing through to get to a home that might be on fire. To me, these extra off-street lots are not adequate right now. Where there's off-street parking is just where the mailboxes are, and there only fits about 9 cars. So as a result, you have a lot of cars still parking on the street, which I think is a safety issue. And also, when they're parking, you know, it can be, you know, kids can run out and not be seen, so it's another safety issue. So I would like to see those off-street lots be larger. And then also we had an area where people could park trailers and recreational vehicles and boats, and that is going to be removed with this new addition. So where are people going to park these vehicles? Are they going to be in people's driveways, which in turn will have people then parking on the street? So I don't see anything in the plan for a place where people can park their boats and recreational vehicles. So my question is, what is the plan for that? So kind of in conclusion, I'd like to be assured that the storm drainage plan is going to adequately handle all that 23rd Street problem. Is there going to be good playground and play area for all these extra children that will be in the area? And then what are we going to do about all these parking issues? And can they enforce the no parking on streets, which is not being enforced right now? Thank you.
Other speakers that would like to address the commission? Come on up. Name and address, please.
John Bernhardt, 2207 Peterson Drive Northwest. I live in the Peterson development. Few points. I'm wondering what the plan is for the whole community as a whole. Looking at the map, there are 35 cul-de-sacs in Stewartville. So neighborhoods are not being expanded upon, or they're built piecemeal by piecemeal. I would like to have or see a plan for the whole community where you put neighborhoods together, not just cut them off with cul-de-sacs. The other thing is with the development, the proposed development going in, if you do see an approximate 2.5 residents per lot, per mobile home, that would mean 1 in 5 Stewartville residents would live in that whole development. Think about that. It's 20%. 20% of everybody. And another thing that was brought up was it would increase the tax base. Taxes per home estimated for a mobile home currently is $220 a year. For a townhome, $2,200. For a residential home, $3,800. These are the ones, this is the amount that goes to the city per year. So I mean, I understand trying to add the tax base. But with the totals adding up, the city would get about $33,000 a year. The school would get $18,500. That is about 22 homes, or 38 townhomes. Something to think about, maybe trying to bring in more townhomes, trying to bring in rare homes, develop, work with other developers. So I'm against the zoning north of the Peterson development and the conditional use program. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pete. I also live in the new section, trailer court on Bergen Avenue.
as my main concern is with the management they have. They had so much water issues. I'm right on the corner lot. Now, cornfield is right above us. Every time it rained this year, we had a foot of mud down in that section. It'd sit there for a week, they'd never clean it up. I would go get work skid loader and go up there in the evening, clean it up 3 different times. And they never took care of any of that. So like everybody else was saying, excuse me, I'm not a great speaker. You know, they gotta take care of what they have first, is what I think, before they start expanding more. That's about all I have, so, thank you.
Hi there, my name is Jamie Staceco and I live at 412 2nd Street, Northwest here in town. I'm here to talk a little bit about some things that have been circulating, some misinformation regarding feeding into the stigma of people who choose to live in a manufactured home. I personally grew up in Spring Valley until I was in 6th grade in a manufactured home, and I was blessed to be in that space with a single mom and 2 other brothers. I had a yard to play in, we had a garage, and we had a beautiful community that just loved on us. And so I'm really thankful for that. I grew up, went to college, and now I'm back contributing to Stewartville where I graduated. And so I'm just really blessed with having that opportunity to be in a space like that, because had my mom not had that opportunity, there's absolutely no way I would have been able to have the ability to have the successful life that I had. We are talking about populations that have been marginalized. These are seniors that are living in manufactured homes. These are people that are on fixed income for whatever reason, and they're being judged by that, by the way, which hurts my heart. These are people that have disabilities, cognitive, physical. They might be on county assistance. They might be doing whatever they can to not leave an assistance. These are people in our community that deserve to be supported and loved just as much as people that live in a $300,000 home. The stigma that I'm concerned about are some misinformation that's been circulating about crime rates. Upwards of 97% of all calls are in this division. I would love for the sheriff to come and address some of those misinformations that have been circulated through our community to, again, just reinforce the stigma that exists in a manufactured home. I would love for Sheriff Torgerson to address that if he's here today. Secondly, I would love for somebody from the school district to address some of the concerns and the misinformation that's been circulated. I take strong offense to the outrage that people are experiencing, saying that 90% of all these people are on free and reduced lunches. Guess what? I was a product of free and reduced lunch, and thank God, because I had meals. And I had a community supporting me, but not all of these families are in the school system. We're talking about different generations of families, not just kids and parents. These are seniors, these are people, single families, or single people living in these spaces. So there's all these different variations and levels of the demographic that will be able to afford their own home. Speaking of affordable, I do have some concerns. I have a stepdaughter that was looking to purchase one of the mobile homes in the current division. But when we added up the numbers, it made absolutely no sense for a single mom with 2 kids to buy a mobile home and then have to pay upwards of $400 a month in a lot fee. That brings you to a $1,200 payment a month for some of those families. And looking at Sheila's graphs, that makes absolutely no sense. So I encourage the community that is looking to develop this, that reassess your fees, because that's astronomical, and you're now putting these homes in a not affordable place where they really should be affordable for people to live. Thank you for your time.
Others from the crowd that would like to address the commission this evening?
I guess it's my turn.
Sheriff, come on up.
Jamie called me out. That was not planned.
Hi, Kevin Torgerson from the Sheriff's Office. I do, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here. There was a flyer or some information that get passed around, so I'm going to answer some questions that did come up with that. First of all, on the flyer, I'm assuming you all saw it. This is how it came to be, so I'm not sure what the actual format came in or was emailed or whatever, but it's titled, Did You Know? And in the middle of it, it says Effect on Crime. It says currently 87% of law enforcement call volume, we call it calls for service, in Stewartville is associated with the manufactured home district. An increase of 800 or 300 units will result in more crime. And then the second bullet is additional law enforcement resources will be needed to be accountable for this, to keep our community safe, I believe it says. We've been tracking this. This is something that we keep track of quite regularly. It's not all that complicated to pull together. But I'll just give you a picture of what we have. I got a bunch of numbers. I can furnish this to you. I'll get it to someone. You can share it with the commission and make it public however you'd like. In Stewartville in 2016, there was 2,872 calls for service in the city of Stewartville. In the area of the quadrant, in the 20th Street quadrant northwest, that year, 2016, was 533 calls. That equates to 23% of the calls for service were in that general vicinity. Now, I say 20th Street northwest, we aren't able to break out the Peterson subdivision out of that, so there's very likely some calls that are there. In 2017, for the city of Stewartville, 2,761 calls for service, and in that same quadrant, 576 calls for service. In 2018, and that equates to a 21% call for service for the city of Stewartville. You're in that area, that quadrant, 20th Street Northwest. 2018, 2,823 calls for service, and in that quadrant, 661 calls for service. So there was an increase, but it equates to still around 23% of the calls for service. There's percentage breaks in there, I'm sure, but so generally. In 2019, through October 31st, so up in, 5 or 6 days ago, Stewartville has 2,190 calls for service, 2,190, and the northwest quadrant, including 20th Street, has 600 calls for service at a 27% rate as far as calls up in that neighborhood. So as far as the information that was sent out, I have really no idea where that came from. I don't think whoever authored that didn't contact me for sure. And as you can see that the percentages of the last 4 years, including this year, 23%, 21%, 23%, and 27% to date are the calls for service in that area. And I would echo, as an elected official, of course, I can't say some things or direct things to commission members and direct them and tell them various things in regards to what I personally think. But I can say one thing. As you look at the calls for service and the people that I do know, I do agree that at times there's labels that get put on people of all kinds, and including law enforcement. We have labels too, as I'm sure all of you are aware. There's a lot of good people that live in these areas. It's not just, as I think, as Jamie stated, that there are, it's all a certain type, and it brings all kinds of challenges for our communities. You could argue that in apartment buildings, you could argue that in various neighborhoods as well. Wherever you go, you can find things to hang your hat on in regards to that. The other thing that I just wanted to mention is that we are familiar with, and I would also say is, to me, is bit of a logical or common sense way of looking at things, but we do know, we recognize with the density, and when you build density, there is a more likelihood for calls for service, and that is generated because people are living closer together. It's pretty simple. In fact, I've told folks, and I don't know if Commissioner Cascade is still here, you are here, I've used this phrase, you've heard the phrase referring to the city of Rochester and Mayo, and that is DMC, Destination Medical Center. As you go into the downtown area, one of the things that is being done there, and it's being done quite well, is building a lot of apartment buildings. So they're building density, and with density in the middle of the city, you have more calls for service, and I'm very aware that the city of Rochester is looking at that, and I think one of the plans they have for this year, or the coming year, or the next year, is to assign officers to a beat district downtown, so they would specifically work in a certain quadrant of the downtown area. So with that, we recognize that anytime a city grows or an area grows, that there may be more calls for service. We also recognize that that may mean that there may be more need for officers, and we just talked to the county or the city council last week about the current contract and what we're doing there. And it is something we specifically have looked at this in regards to when do these calls happen. And Mary, you probably should pull me in a second here, huh?
You're way over.
I know. You're not the first person to tell me that either.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you. Anyway, we recognize that, and it's one of the things that we've been tracking now for the last few years is our number of calls for service here in Stewartville. And is it a point, is there a tipping point when we may need to have a second deputy that's down here on specific assignment to Stewartville? And that's a conversation we'll have with the city as we watch this, and that's exactly why we've been tracking some of these numbers as far as the percentage of calls for service. I will say, the last thing in regards to the calls for service, this document that I'll send, there's a second graph below it, and it talks about community service stops or calls, and those are not reflected in this and in those numbers that I gave, and then traffic stops in that general area are also not reflected in this, but we do have a graph as to how many traffic stops are occurring in Stewartville and how many community service events are here. The last thing in regards to the comment that was made just a few minutes ago about parking in the trailer court or in the manufactured home community, it's a private area. We don't write tickets in there for parking. That's a private area. We only write tickets in the residential areas where that's where the ordinance applies, not in the private community. So that's why you don't see us there writing tickets. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Superintendent?
Hi, thank you for this opportunity to speak to the group. I did want to respond to a couple of things that were on the, I think it was a flyer or a piece of information. In our opinion, in the school district, poverty knows no boundaries. We know that we have families living in poverty throughout the community of Stewartville, throughout the community of Racine, in our rural areas, farm areas. Poverty exists in all of those settings. And so the statement or the statistic that stated 90% of our free and reduced students come from this neighborhood, there is no data that supports that. That data did not come from my office. Free and reduced eligibility status is considered confidential private data, and so in order to access that data, they would have to contact my office. And no one did do that to come to that statistic. So I'm not sure where that statistic came from, but it did not come from my office. Poverty doesn't have a zip code, and so when we talk about a community that is
overrun with poverty, I think we have to be very, very, very careful in making those kinds of comments. I have a personal story that goes with that. When my husband and I were first married, he had an enormously large dog. And we could not rent an apartment with this dog. We had to buy a home. But we didn't have a down payment for a single-family home. And we moved into a manufactured home community. When I was living there, I was teaching, and my husband had a very good job as a plumber pipe fitter. So we had decent income. We didn't have any problem making our payments or our lot rent. There was one opportunity in which I wanted to go down to the 7-Eleven, which is at the end of the community development, and buy some milk, bread, and eggs. I didn't want to run up to the grocery store, so I just walked down there. I didn't have cash. This is back before ATMs. This is in the old days, when you would write checks for what you had. So I got my milk, bread, and eggs, laid it on the counter, was beginning to write my check, read it out, handed it to the clerk, and he looked at me and he said, "We don't take checks from you people." And I looked at him and I said, "What?" He said, "Your address is 67 Meadow Park. We don't take checks from you people." It was the first time in my life that I was discriminated against based on where I lived. It had never happened to me before. I had to leave the store, my milk, bread, and eggs on the counter, and I walked home sobbing the entire way. We had good jobs, but it was the only thing we could afford. So I think it's important to consider the reason people make this choice and honor that. Thank you.
Mike Hanson, 1111 Peterson Lane, Northwest, the Peterson subdivision. I guess unlike some of the people out here, in 1998 we moved up here, didn't have money for a house, so we moved into the trailer court. The manager was Jeannie. Anybody who lived out there during that time, they know Jeannie. She'd go around in the spring and in the fall and write everybody up. Whether it was, we brought in a brand new trailer, $40,000 trailer, and she wrote us up because she wanted pressure washed in the spring. There was other people throughout the community that got wrote up for broken windows, not covering their hitch, whatever it might be. But she made sure that the community stayed clean. Well, if you go out there now, you see broken windows, plywood over broken windows, junk in the front of the trailers. We've heard from people that live out there currently that there is no management. And so I'm just wondering, as far as like Sun Country or Sun Community, what are you gonna do to maintain what's already there? You know, and from what I hear, it's just kind of a money thing for you guys. At $418, I think I heard, for rent. But yet, you guys aren't trimming trees or plowing snow, maintaining it. Like I said, there's broken windows, it's a safety issue. The Stewartville has a crime-free housing ordinance and registration certificates. There's illegal criminal activity ordinances. You know, just kind of wondering that way. I did go ahead, Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I checked the police activity log from October 1st to October 31st. There again, the Northwest Quadrant, I showed 70 calls, which 28 of them are traffic stops. With County Road 6 or 8 or whatever being closed, that adds more traffic to 20th Street going to the school. So obviously the law enforcement has been patrolling that. There was 11 paper services, 10 assists, 5 community services, 3 medicals. No, it's really not that crazy. But that's just 70 calls in the Northwest Quadrant. That doesn't include all of Stewartville. So I guess people saying the trailer courts are bad, it's probably not so bad as long as they're managed. And it sounds like it's not getting managed, so why would we give them 300 more units if they're not managing the 414 or whatever number it is.
John Buckmeyer, 506 10th Street, Southeast. I just had, maybe you guys have already presented this and I didn't see it, or if I can find it somewhere. Have we ever done a study, like a 5-10 year build out, to say what this is going to cost the taxpayer for, with regards to, we're talking about adding people, students, are we going to have room for them, are we going to add on to Bonner, are we going to have to do that? I know they pay all the whack and sack up front, the maintenance and everything like that, is that all done? Have we ever done a study looking at what the 5-10 year impact is? Might be positive, might be negative, but at least we're transparent and seeing what that study looks like. Would be nice. Maybe you guys already have done that. I'm guessing there has to be something like that if you guys have to proceed with going forward on something like this, how it affects us as the taxpayer. If there is, that'd be great. Just reach out to me afterwards. Thanks.
Kai Holstein, 113 Peterson Lane, Peterson Development. I just have a couple questions. First off, I wish I would have seen all you people here the last couple of planning meetings when this was going on, because we had open comments on those about this. Couple concerns I have, and I heard about the traffic study and stuff. We have an apartment complex going in. Okay, traffic study was done that. That wasn't taken into account to your traffic study about an apartment complex going in across from the school. Number two, I drive that road all the time, and with 6 being closed for construction, the stoplight is a lot worse now, so you figure that amount of traffic now, you had all that, it's already there. Traffic study was done then. You already got the traffic study now. If you with County Road 6, you can see the light is not timed right. You can come home at work at 5 o'clock, and the traffic backed up well past Halcon, just to turn north of the 63. So just to say that the road is there and it works, it doesn't. And then look at what's going on right now with the construction. The other thing that I have to say is, I have friends that live in the trailer court, and they have some of the same concerns you guys have, questioning why are they allowing them to expand it when they can't even take care of us? I mean, sorry, I should be addressing you guys. But, I know 3 people that, I work for Toyota. I live right across the street from that mobile home park community that she was talking about. The density's less, they're nicer, and they're upkept. They're followed up, they're made sure they're kept up. I look at this and it looks like they just want to shoehorn 300 trailers in there. It would be nice for us who have kept up the house, the values of our houses are there, to have a density thin down towards us. You go boom, 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 and then just cram them in all the way up against there. Look at the map. You have a nice community, big backyards and stuff, and you're shoehorning trailer homes into there, mobile homes, or however you want to say it. I know it's aesthetically wrong to say trailer home or whatever, but my grandparents both in Arizona grew up in mobile home parks. I always spend the time with them. It just wasn't like where they're talking about we want the community to look nice for future generations and stuff, people coming in. Think about that. You have to buffer there, a little buffer, but it's tight, and then you have a nice development. There's just it doesn't seem like I understand what they're doing. They're probably saying, I want 300 homes and we can get, and maybe get down less. But they're kind of what this has done and put in the paper and stuff, and put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, I should say. Because if they would have come out and said, okay, this is what we really want, because it really sounds to me, just hearing from people who live in trailer mobile home park, they've heard from them that, they'll settle for 150, they'll settle for 200. But trying to go there, these are people who live there, and talking to some of the community managers and stuff that come through and have talked to them about. Some of them have come into the new management company, not the people managing the trailer homes there. the people who come in doing surveys and stuff, and I told some of these people I know that, yeah, we're gonna put this in, hopefully we can we'll put up the top number there, and we'll probably get told to put it back a little bit. And the other thing is the rezoning, to me, that kind of ruined our community. When I originally went in there, it was talking about the road going around to Quick Trip, the houses going around that way. That blocks us off. We can't do that. It's an island now. The other side of the road is High Forest Township. You know, it just doesn't make sense to me that we allow the rezoning. I understand that it was approved in '96, and in 2000 or 2002, it was approved to do the other expansion. I get that. But let's look at the expansion, instead of cramming as many more as we can get in there, let's make it aesthetically look from the old to the new to the housing development. Make it look like it flows, instead of boom, stop, done. It just doesn't make sense.
Wes Radcliffe, 6885 County Road 6, Southwest Stewartville. Also the developer of the Peterson subdivision. I think you've heard concerns of the current neighbors, current residents of the subdivision. As a developer, I agree with that. I was told a year ago that there would be lesser density likely adjoining, which we don't see in this map. I was told there'd be a berm. The berm was not defined, but my definition of a berm would be something that you really can't see over. And the definition of the berm on this drawing shows an individual, and it looks to me like the berm is 2 feet high or so. So it's really more of a drainage berm than it is a berm of some kind of separation. I was also under the impression that along with that density change, there would be 2-car attached garages with those units as well. And I don't see any garages on the Sankey Peterson, or the Sankey side of that subdivision. I'm not sure what shows up on the north side up there. But I think that for the protection of the people that have invested, in some cases, over $400,000 in their homes, I think there needs to be some kind of a community break. And I definitely think that it should be a berm. Another thought I had is if you go into Arizona and those kind of areas with communities, you'll see actual concrete and stone barrier fences. And I think something like that might be appropriate and kind of make the two neighborhoods maybe even look like gated communities to a degree. If it's going to be just a berm, then I think there needs to be a fence on the manufactured home side. And then I agree with the comment that was made about the vegetation, the trees. I think they need to be there to soften everything, but they do take a long time to grow. So I guess my concern is there's a really big difference in the value of homes in these two neighborhoods, and I think the people that have invested should be protected. And I want my investment protected for the future lots that I have to sell and develop. So.
So my name is Jennifer Reed, and I just wanted to bring forward one big fact. I know a lot of us are talking with a lot of passion because we're talking about homes, but I just wanted to clarify what we really need from you guys is to realize that yes, we're talking about homes, so we're talking about passion, but what's coming in is a business. And we really need you guys to look at the fact that this is a business that wants to bring in an opportunity for them to raise money, and we need you to kind of see through that fact that we're talking about homes with it too. And I think we can do both in this community, but if you want something that they can have pride in and we can have pride in, I just want to bring that fact that, you know, we really are talking about a business that's coming in to make money, and I mean, I just don't want that to get lost, and because there's a lot of conversation about how people feel about each other and where they're living and what your money is, and I just don't want the fact to get lost in there. I already sent my letter into the council, so thank you.
Thank you. Hannah Weckner, 808 Beach Boulevard Southeast. I was wondering, I don't know what the new letter grade is for the parking. That was an interesting slide that or not the parking, the roadway with the 2,000. He said it was a B or a C today, but then he said it's not much change. I don't know if that means a D or an F. That's not much change from a C, but I would be interested in that specific letter grade. Also, I'm a bit concerned with the park space and the shelter that's proposed. It looks like the park space is one park for 300 homes. I've been on the park board here in Stewartville, and I don't actually have the numbers, but I think we look at about 25 to 50 homes per park. So maybe the volume is less with people, but I don't know if that's enough space. The shelter, it looks like it's the size of one home for 300 people to deal with a tornado or something that might happen. Sheila talked about the need for building equity in homes, but I understand, and I don't also have this information, if these are rentals or if they're owned. It seems like there's a lot of different information out, and maybe there's a percentage of each, but I also don't see, how people would gain equity necessarily if they're rentals. Next is the affordable housing. According to the Office of Legislative Auditors in Minnesota, the affordable housing in Minnesota rate would be around $400 to $700 per month. I just looked at the modular homes that are for sale out there today, renting for about $1,300 per month for a 3-bedroom home. My mortgage is $1,100 in Georgetown. Of course, I was able to put a down payment down, but that's more than what I'm paying. And I would like to see from the Planning and Zoning Committee a look into how we can add ordinances. I don't really know what you were saying in the beginning in terms of what we can and can't do. But I think we need sidewalks. I think we need to look at boulevards with trees. I think we need to look at larger distances between these homes for safety, potentially looking at garages, things that would make this more aesthetically pleasing. And again, like I said, with the park space. Also enforcing ordinances around sheds, things that are aesthetically pleasing. And in Georgetown, we can't have certain types of fencing, we can't have certain types of sheds, and it's all because of the aesthetic and the home value that we hold. So I would just like to see the Planning and Zoning Committee look at those things. Thank you.
I know I already spoke before, but I wanted to address the shelters. Southern Hills Shelter holds maybe half of what's here. And it's very uncomfortable to be in a situation when there's a possible tornado. Northridge Shelter is not any better. So the current shelters that we have are too small. So if you're going to build more, we need a larger shelter that can hold every single person. That's a large building. I personally have gone to the shelter during tornado warnings and left because I felt unsafe with the amount of people in that tiny building, both at Southern Hills and the Northridge Shelter. I chose to drive out to the country to my dad's house, 10 minutes away, to go to his basement. And in that time, I could have come across a tornado. So again, we need to address what is currently there before adding anything else.
commission this evening.
I
Come on up.
have to say right now, I'm taking a bad for heart rate and promise it makes my voice shaky, so just bear with me. I spent a lot of time on Facebook this week, reading everybody's posts, and getting more and more what my mom calls pat up about all of this, which means pretty angry and upset. And so I stood here and listened tonight and I thought, God, I have nothing to be angry and upset about. Because I had contacted Kevin and said, I don't believe that the crime rate out there was that great. I said, please, I'd like to have you tell me what the crime rate is in my neighborhood, because I have a house 2 doors down that it's like real life cops all the time. It's like I should start logging how many times I see law enforcement come to that house. And I live on Reichel Circle, by the way, I'm in Land Canyon. And I live at 707 Reichel Circle. So I've spent this whole week being really torn up about this issue because I lived out there in that trailer court in 1981, from 1979 to 1981. It was all my husband and I could afford, despite the fact I was an RN at Mayo. And as soon as we could find a home, we moved into town. But we did enjoy the fights that we got to listen to in our neighbors next door, because they weren't kind of happy. But I was really torn because a lot of my Facebook friends were behind that poster. And so I'm afraid I'm going to burn some bridges here with some of those posts, because the thing that I reacted to the most strongly is, you know, my income has always been pretty healthy. My kids never had to have reduced meals. But frankly, I don't care if 90% of the kids who get reduced income or free meals live out there. If their parents are struggling to make ends meet, then by God, let them have reduced income meals. I just get upset when people talk about that kind of thing. And honestly, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Republican, but I still have a lot of social responsibility about things. That said, the one thing I do want to tell all of you who are on the council and on this board is this little zone right here that right now can't have manufactured homes in it, if I get a vote, I don't want you to change that. Because frankly, I think part of the reason behind this push for us to get all of this manufactured home in such a big hurry has to do with DMC. And frankly, I'm tired of feeling like a suburb of Rochester. Let's have Byron and all the other surrounding communities get some more manufactured home parks. I don't know where you got your statistic, but you told me that if these 300 homes go in, Stewartville is going to have the largest manufactured home site in the state. And I'm just not sure I think that's the way we need to be. I think if we need all this affordable housing, and it sure sounds like we do, then it needs to get spread around a little bit, and it doesn't all need to happen right here in Stewartville. I really wanted to thank you, because I just think it had to take a tremendous amount of courage for you to get up here and speak. I was really touched by what you said.
Anyone else this evening that would like to address the commission?
Mark out here in 412 2nd Street Northwest. Good job, Judy. I think it's just important that as cities, we manage how we want our city to be perceived. And I'm all about affordable housing. I think we need to have communities that embrace affordable housing, but I think we also as a city have to have a plan for affordable housing. And it's very important that we look at all the different ways we can help a city grow and support the affordable housing side of it, because our kids and our kids' kids are going to need it. I think a big part here I implore the committee to really look at is the company, right? $420 it is of lot rent only covers the facilities that they could, a person can can partake in out there, and the snow removal of the streets. That's all it covers. In many mobile home communities, it covers garbage, it covers much more than that. And there's not one place in Rochester that charges over $400 a month. And so what really needs to be managed here is the company. I'm for affordable housing if we can have it in the community, but we have to manage large corporations from California, Chicago, or wherever they're from, in making sure our community is what it needs to be for the patrons of our community, even the new ones, if they're part of this mobile home community.
Would anyone else like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission this evening?
Hi, I'm Ross Dave from Sankey Lane. Tonight I don't know if I can express it correctly, I have no problem with the people that live in the trailer park. Just like everywhere else, there's good and bad everywhere. There's people who can afford stuff, people who can't afford stuff. Where I'm concerned is, from my house, there is a stigma of trailer park, good, bad, or indifferent. I didn't make it up, it's there. If the trailer park goes in without all the buffering areas and safeguards, I hate to use that term, but my house is gonna lose a good chunk of value. That may sound greedy and unconcerning for low-income housing, which I do not believe this place is low-income housing. It's not affordable. I could go out on a limb here, and I don't know where the management is, but hey, the payment for those trailer houses and lot rent is more than I paid for my house. So, you know, as she said, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Republican. I'm very conservative, but this is getting to the point of the lot rent and the cost of the house. They make it sound like if you don't go for this, you hate poor people. You scum because, oh my God, this is the greatest opportunity for people to have a house. Well, it's the same cost factoring that the rest of us pay for houses. It's just in a lot more condensed area. And the basics, what I've said about this whole thing is this concentration of this many trailer houses really an improvement to our community? Does it make us better? Does it make our schools better? Does it help everybody who's less fortunate? Because I've lived in a small trailer house myself. I remember when my parents actually had to pull out food stamps when I was a little kid and we lived on a farm. So, now I'm starting to babble. But is this really going to improve everybody, not just their pocketbook? And I hate to use that because I'm pro-business. They are, as other people have said, it's a management issue. Because you could make that place a beautiful park where a lot of people really want to live, but if you congest it up and don't put any amenities in there and just do the bare minimums, it's going to turn into a hole. And the pictures, the beautiful pictures that were presented to us, I'm going out on a limb here, and somebody can argue with me, but I'll guarantee you that's the best, most beautiful homes that could possibly go in there. That's not the standard. So, as the old expression, put a lipstick on a pig. I don't know if that really applies. But, back to it. Are we really gaining anything, or are we just trying to surrender to society saying, oh, this is the right thing to do, when it really, in all many ways, is not the right thing to do? Thank you.
Okay, I'm getting up there. Well, I really liked what you said.
So here's the thing, I'm not such a proponent of big business. And I have a little trouble with somebody coming in from Chicago telling me how they want to improve my little community in southern Minnesota. So I did the math while I was sitting over there. The lot rent is $440 a month. The yearly rental then, if they fill all those, is $1,584,000. Now I realize that they have some overhead, so there's some subtractions from that. But that's a lot of money. So I honestly, I'm kind of a cynic. I really don't believe they're after helping us improve our community or helping us improve our housing situation in Minnesota. They're all about making money, and they don't really care what happens. Clearly, if the conditions in that home, those homes out there are the way they are right now, they clearly don't care. And they really need to clean up their own nest before they tell us how to improve ours. The other thing I wanted to say is this has become a much bigger issue than I realized. Because when I read that letter about how crime is so high in that area, I went on the internet, and as an RN in research, I know that if you're going to study articles on the internet, they better be peer-reviewed from reliable institutions. So those are the only articles I read, and there are tons of them out there. And for those of you who want to harp about the crime, I hate to tell you this, but none of the peer-reviewed articles support your stand. Most of the peer-reviewed articles said that when you bring low-income housing or affordable housing, to use the politically correct term, crime usually falls overall. But the one proviso I found in all of those articles is exactly your argument. Those of you who live out there, your housing values are going to go down. All of the peer-reviewed articles supported that, so I really feel for you, because I live out here on Michael Circle. I don't have to worry about it. But let me tell you, when they talked about putting senior housing in my backyard when it was Meadow Park and it wasn't going to be Meadow Park, I got on my high horse. So I don't blame you. But
I am going to interject, if you could please direct the comments to
Yes.
the zoning commission, I appreciate
sure,
it.
well,
Thank you.
yeah, but that was it. I really think that what he said is one of the most valued arguments I had. You need to really be thinking about what you can do to make this a true improvement for our community and not another place where all of the residents are going, I'm worried trees are going to fall on my lots. My playground is not big enough for my kids. Because what Hannah said indicates to me that the playground they're planning to build isn't anywhere near large enough. And neither is their storm shelter. And frankly, I don't think they care. Because they're in this to make money, and we all have to acknowledge that.
My name is Corey, I live at 1103 Peterson Lane. Don't want to bring up what a lot of other people said. I agree with most of it. There's a couple things we haven't talked about. I've sat at Dairy Queen, and I've looked across the road, and I'm thinking, why are people stopping at Dairy Queen on 63 heading south at the end of the day? Traffic. People trying to turn left, they can't, so everybody gets in the right lane. I've seen accidents. They're going to put an apartment complex out there. They're going to close Highway 30. Where's the roads, where the traffic going to go? You got school buses turning all the time. They're going out to the school and back. You're talking about putting in 300 lots out there. What about medical? Not one person's talking about any medical calls. You're gonna increase the population, you're gonna increase medical calls. That's a huge deal. Your fire hall, which you just redid down here, is at the south end of town. It's not centralized. Maybe there needs to be another medical building towards. Mail ambulance comes from Rochester. Takes some time. Time is a big thing when it comes to medical. A lot of the people that talk here are passionate. In my opinion, I'm looking at the board here, you guys are just taking it all in, but there doesn't seem to be any passion. The shock value is what's gonna make me think about what's going on out there. That increase in population, that short amount of time, what's the city gonna prepare to plan or zone around that? You've got pools, you've got schools, you've got a fire halls that have all went in. You've got a levy that just went in. Does that levy support increase in building maintenance for the levy that just passed? Next couple of years, is there going to be another levy to have to build the school because of the shock value? Will the same amount of residents that live out there stay out there for the next 20, 30 years? We hope so if it does. If not, the rest of the city's going to have to burden that. So that's what I'm going to leave it at. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments. I would just take a moment to interject that the Planning and Zoning Commission is a volunteer board appointed by the mayor of Stewartville. So I would just like to throw that out there as, you know, we meet on a regular basis when different groups bring proposals to the city, and we are one of the first bodies that reviews it and ultimately makes those recommendations to the city council. So when we talk about passion, I would just like to throw that out there that we really do need to come in with an unbiased view and receive all feedback, both for and against, and it's upon this group to then weigh that out and ultimately make a decision. So again, very much appreciate your comments, but just to provide some perspective from the P&Z, that's where we're coming from tonight. So with that, I would again encourage anybody that would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight, if you would like to come up and address P&Z with a topic that has not been discussed yet this evening, would encourage you to do that now.
Sorry, I didn't address you guys first. One thing I don't think has been addressed here, and it's concerning to me is, and I don't know, you guys have power, city council has control of stuff, but what guarantees or what recourse do we have if the status quo continues? No maintenance, poor road quality, so on and so forth. Where can the city hold them responsible, saying, you said you would do this, you said you would give us these beautiful homes and let all these people have great starter homes and it's a beautiful world. If they don't follow up on it, what do? We just say, oops, sorry, thank you for your tax money? So I direct that to you guys. I know you can't respond to me and give me a real answer, but that question is out there. Can we revoke their license? That's it.
Anyone else that would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission this evening?
Hi, my name's Tom Herman. I live at 2209 Peterson Drive, in the Peterson subdivision. And many people brought up the density of the 300 units being put in that 70-acre plot. And my concern is also in that regards to the density, but from the aspect of the people that live inside there, what kind of quality of life do they have? It'd be nice if they had a little bit of a yard, that the kids could play in the yard. The park that's planned is right smack dab in the middle of the thing, and if you live at one of the park corners, you basically have to walk through the entire mobile home park there that they're gonna put in to get to that park. Or if you open up those lots a little bit more, they can blend in better with our subdivision and also give those kids that live in those far lots more area to play right in their own yard. So that's what I wanted to say.
Anyone else that would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission this evening? I will ask one more time, is there anybody else in the audience this evening that would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Now we got a line. Go ahead. Someone who has questions first, then you can come back to it.
It's Brian Stockton, live at 2211 Peterson Drive. I am not a public speaker, so I've probably screwed a lot of things up here, so. But y'all have a tough job. I mean, you're volunteers, you're faced with our opposition, you have to make the right choice. And we don't know what that is. And we talked about a little bit some of the things in the flyer. We got a couple of statistics wrong according to some statistics. That doesn't mean the argument's not valid. We throw out a couple of points. We still have a reasonable expectation of the city to make the right thing, to protect our values, to protect the community. We have to look at bigger pictures. Density of the population, what about fire response time? Sticking trailers that close together, is that, what's the catch rate? What if one catches on fire? Does the next one catch on fire next to it, and so on and so on? So you need more space in that. But also I want to say that affordable housing has to be affordable. You can't hide under that umbrella and say, affordable housing, but you're gonna end up paying $1,200-1,400 a month. You can buy a single family home for that. You might have to have a little bit more of a deposit or buy something that, needs a fixer upper. This isn't the right direction for Stewartville to go. I think it's nothing more than just a cash grab. These guys don't care about people that actually need affordable housing. They're more worried about their pockets. All I have to say about that.
Janie again, I just have two follow-ups to that. Stigma is stigma. Everybody has the power to change stigma. And statistics that are untrue just fuel the fire of stigma of marginalized populations. Just something to think about. 52,000 houses. That's what we're short. We're short 52,000 according to Sheila's statistic. We are not able to have houses built in a timely manner to support our shortage. Just keep that in mind. There are a lot of things you guys have to consider. Affordability, I'm passionate about, and it has to be affordable for these people. Absolutely. We want to provide safe, affordable housing for people so they can live in this beautiful community. But there are shortages all over the state. And welcoming people to our community, we do that really well, and I hope that we don't forget that. We are a loving and welcoming community. Thanks.
I really just wanted to ask a question because I kind of feel sorry for all of you up there. I wouldn't want to be in your seat. That said, I wanted to find out how I become one of you, how I volunteer to put myself in the hot seat and be a part of the solution.
Well, I am happy to respond to that. The Mayor King appoints representatives to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Library Board, the Park Board, and I'm I'm sure you could follow up with Cheryl, with city staff, and she would be more than happy to pass your information along to the mayor.
Okay, because I'm retired now and I don't need all of my time to go to childcare for the grandkids.
I would do an advertisement as well, that we always need representatives and volunteers with the city, so I very much appreciate those comments. With that, I will put it out there again. I'll continue doing this, and because we want to give everyone every possible opportunity to speak if they would like, and
Short, I'll be really short.
but I do have to have you come over to the podium.
Oh, I can go over there?
Yes, please do. And if we could have your name and address, that would be terrific. Thank you.
I am not a public speaker at all. Annie Gurdon, Fort Trouble, 1906, 2nd Avenue, Northeast. I know that we've been talking about lower income and how we really want these to be lower income. And I agree, totally agree. But when I'm paying $1,200, or I was paying at the trailer park $1,200 for lot rent, my rent, and garbage and water, and that's it. And then you add another $200 at least for gas, electric, things like that. It is so far beyond affordable that, you know, not average person can do it. Especially since they're trying to base this off of Halcon employees and Geotech employees. And it's just not as affordable as what I think that we're hoping it to be. It just seems to be a lot of money in their pockets. Sorry to say. I'm also for the kids. Really big advocate for the kids. And as it is, the pool already has a line that goes outside the door. You know, we don't have enough pool space for these guys. How about the library? There's not a big enough library for everybody. Even just community resources and things for all these people and all these kids to do. I just think there's more than just affordable housing to look at. So yeah, there you go.
Anyone else that would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight? I will make one final call, if anybody would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight. Otherwise, I will be closing the public hearing, so one more opportunity. There we go, that's why I do it, gotta provide that. Name and address, please.
Wade Newbauer, 506 9th Street Southeast. I wasn't going to speak because I think all my answers were kind of already, or not answers, but most of my concerns were already talked about with everybody else. But I guess what I want to go back to the beginning, I'm still a little bit foggy on the city attorney's presentation at the beginning. She threw up some slides pretty quickly, and not your fault, we just want to move things along. The part about the state law, the Minnesota Department of Health state statute, is that telling the planning commission, the city council, that they have to approve it based on the conditional use permit because it falls within the R3?
No.
Because then, because in the ordinance then you stated that it has chapter 1310.13 or something like that, requirements and standards, specifically number 4, standards A through I think J. Now if they feel like the development doesn't meet one of those requirements, they can deny it based on that, correct? Okay, so the one that keeps sticking out in my head is 4D, and I can read it really quick just so everybody knows what 4D is. So 4 standards says the planning commission shall recommend a conditional use permit and the city council order the issuance of such permit only if it finds that such use at the proposed location, and then 4D, will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services, including streets, police and fire protection, drainage structures, refuse disposal, water and sewer systems, and schools, and will be served adequately by such facilities and services provided by the persons or agencies responsible for the establishment of the proposed use. That's 4D of that chapter. And I think it's been said over and over again tonight that I think you can raise doubt, Planning Commission, that they don't adequately do that. I heard from the police, so they kind of cleared that up, 27% of crime, whatever, so that alleviated my concern about that. I didn't really get a good answer from Belinda on the schools. In 3 to 5 years, are we gonna have another levy? Are we gonna have another school referendum? I didn't hear from her if that 4D, if that part 4D was adequately provided to us. And just the other thing that kind of sticks into my head, and I don't know if I'm running against time here, the other thing that sticks up in my head is that they're going to be adding, I think it comes down to like 60 to 100 homes per year in the next 3 to 5 years. So just to give you a little perspective, the Schumann-Rolling Ridge subdivision out here, our newest subdivision, I would say, that started in, I think, 2004-ish. It's roughly 16 years old. There's currently 42 houses built out there right now. So in 16 years, they built 42 houses. That's an average of roughly 2.5 to 3 houses per year. And they're saying they want to put 60 to 100 houses or 30 houses per year. That's some serious rapid growth. So again, I go back to the schools. I go back to all the other public facilities. Are we adequately going to provide those, given that kind of growth, that quickly? Thank you.
Would anybody else like the opportunity? There we go. I have to give my second warning.
My name's Ewan Ferguson. I live at 503 Fifth Avenue Southeast. There's no denying that there's a shortage of affordable housing in the state of Minnesota. I moved here from Canada in 1996, and we rented for 4 years. And then we were able to put a down payment on a home in 2000 when the prices were a little more reasonable. My concern is that Sun Communities is in the business of making money. They're not in the business of providing affordable housing out of the goodness of their hearts. And it just seems to me that I'd like to leave here tonight confident in the abilities of our representative government, whether they're appointed or elected. I'd like to leave here confident that you'll make the proper and the right decision based on the fact that you are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So try to make the right decision for the community of Stewartville, not for the community of Sun.
Hi, Belinda Selfer, Superintendent of Schools. I do want to respond to the question or concern that was expressed about the impact on schools and the part of the statute 4D. If in the extreme situation there were 300 homes added within 5 years, and one of the statistics that I've read, I don't know if it's accurate, was 1.5 children on average per home, that'd be 450 students. Would this district be able to absorb 450 students in 3 to 5 years? The flat answer is no. We would be very overcrowded. There would be a tremendous impact on our school system. What are the alternatives to that? If students move into Stewartville, they are ours. They deserve to attend Stewartville Public Schools. So there'll be a couple of decisions that have to be made. Would we close completely open enrollment? We do gain about 400 students per open enrollment, about 130 open enroll out, so we're netting about 270 students through open enrollment at our school system. 450 students in 3 to 5 years, there'd be some very challenging and difficult decisions that would have to be made. So when we consider density and the concerns that have come along with that, I would encourage the Planning Commission to consider that piece. The more homes you place, the likelihood that there'll be more children, it all falls together in that way. One other piece that I wanted to just talk about aesthetically, I know that there was mention of a main thoroughfare through the community with sidewalks on that road. I would highly encourage all of the neighborhoods to have sidewalks in order to ensure safe routes to school and to the bus stop. Every home needs access to a sidewalk, not sidewalks on the main arterial road going through the community. Thank you.
Can you just clarify that if any aspect of our community grew by that much, whether it's single-family homes, apartments, manufactured homes, we might face those kind of pressures?
If any part of the community in which we gain 450 students in 5 years, that would be a dramatic impact on the school system, yes. I don't know that single-family homes could pop up that quickly in 3 to 5 years, but a manufactured home community possibly could. So, and again, those are extremes and those are variables that we can't predict. When the last development of 80 homes was added, we did not increase our enrollment by 120 students. Our enrollment was flat. So it could be from one extreme to the other, but the potential is there and it should be considered. Thank you.
Same name, same address. I'd just like to comment on Superintendent Zolfer's comment about closing the open enrollment. To say that they're gonna close open enrollment is kind of a play on words, I guess. And you can correct me, I'm sure you will.
If you can continue to address that planning and zoning commission, I appreciate it.
Well,
Thank you.
Ms. Selfer said that they're talking about possibly closing the open enrollment policy. According to some Minnesota state statute, once a student is accepted for open enrollment, that student has a right to continue through graduation. The school board has also decided that once a student is accepted for open enrollment, all the other siblings will also be allowed to attend the school. We're currently picking up students at Scenic Oaks, Hart Farms, Greystone subdivisions in Rochester. So to say that we can close open enrollment, we can close new students as long as they don't have other siblings already in the school. So the 160 students that would possibly come from the 300 trailers, they're guaranteed also to be in the school. So that's something to think about.
I just have one additional question. I'll direct it to you guys, but it's for some communities. When they get this all built up, they all plan on moving to town and contributing to the community, or are they gonna take the money and go home?
Would anybody else like to address the planning and zoning commission tonight with a topic that has not already been discussed?
Wendy Tim again. I just have a question on the density issue. So are you, maybe this is a question for the attorney, can you decide the density, like how large each lot is that, or is that considered arbitrary, or can you actually say each lot has to be a certain width and depth?
The planning commission could make recommendations as far as what density.
Okay, so that's allowable, so they could, in essence, decrease that by half, the 300 by half, by requesting larger lots.
They could make that recommendation.
Okay.
Bill, could you hand the microphone to Melanie? Melanie, would you mind just summarizing that just for the benefit of those that might be doing this at a later time and those in the back of the room maybe so that the crowd could maybe hear it if they didn't hear it before?
Sure. Ms. Tim asked whether or not it would be allowable that the density be decreased. And my answer was that I do think that the planning commission can make a recommendation to council that would decrease the density.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address P and Z this evening?
As they said, same name, same address. This is directed to our lawyer. When you say can make recommendations, does that mean what they say goes? Or there's still another layer of, we can change our mind, somebody else can come in and change it without public notice? Basically, a clarification on that. When you say make recommendations, that's different than make a decision.
Well, the planning commission is just.
And if we can have the mic, yeah, Melanie, if you want to take the mic for the crowd, thank you.
The planning commission is just a recommending body. They don't actually make the decisions. They make recommendations to the city council, who would actually make the decision whether or not to grant or deny a request for a conditional use permit and set whatever conditions upon that permit.
And then that is recorded, and then that's what they have to do in the future. They have to continue that.
They have to comply with all of those conditions.
The company concerned tonight, or?
The company concerned, or anybody who would buy them out and continue with it.
Okay. All right, so the city council who makes the final decision. This is just a recommendation. If the city council says, no, we're gonna let them have free rein, let them do anything they want, it's up to the city council. So, everybody, talk to the city council. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
For those that haven't been around the process, Stuart Bill for all years of time always starts a plat review or a development review at a planning commission level. And then from there, recommendations are made based on all the input they get to the city council. And then the city council basically goes through that same process again, reviewing all that input from all sides before that final decision is made.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else that would like to address P and Z this evening? And I will offer up one more time, anyone that would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission this evening.
Can I ask, Bill, just, when this goes to the council, can the council just completely reject the proposal as well?
Correct, they would have that ability. Yes.
What time frame are we looking at for these decisions to be made? Is this really the first step, or what comes next?
Well, back up one second. The council would have the ability to reject the planning commission's recommendation. It'll still be up to them to decide. Now, because right now, all this is a proposal, so it can be revised by anybody, it can be added to, it can be taken away from. And so each body has that ability, but in this body's case, they send those recommendations on, and the council has the ability to do that. Sorry.
And then the question about the time frame, Bill?
Well, it'll be up to the commission. I don't think they're gonna make any decision tonight, but that'll be up to them, because they're gonna get a chance to do some discussion here once the public comments are done. I know some of you have suggested, are we gonna have time to review all this input that has come in? And so I'm gonna assume that they're gonna do that. From the council members that have talked to us or know this was on the docket, I don't know if they'll make a decision all in one night either, because they want to weigh out all this input that has come in, the presentations that have made, and then they want to review the recommendations the planning commission might have. So that could take some time too, maybe over the course of several meetings. So this might be a little while yet before any final decision is gotten to.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. But will we be allowed to be at the city council meeting then as well?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. So the question is, the question from the audience is someone, or is everybody allowed? And this is open government, so.
Now, please be reminded that the city council can or cannot recognize citizens for speaking. So that'll be up to them that evening or that day, if they deem necessary. That's just a privilege that any city council in the United States has. And so we'll just have to wait and see what kind of discussions, what kind of recommendations come in. But we're hoping to, and the council, I think all of them are here tonight, so that they could hear all of this input directly. We did notice it for them, and so it gave them an opportunity, and they will take this input into account from the input that's been given by everybody tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Could we have your name since you were off the record?
I
We'd
just
like to
didn't
keep
feel like it was needed
No,
to be
that's
up there.
okay, that's okay.
Rochelle Steiger, 2004 Peterson Drive.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. Anyone else that would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission this evening? And I'll ask one more time, is there anyone that would like to address the P&Z tonight? Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and we are going to close the public hearing. That brings us to the next point in our agenda this evening of opening it up for P&Z Commission members' discussion. So I would invite that discussion now.
Can we bring a representative from Central Communities up?
The mayor.
Can I have a second?
Yes.
Before you all get up and leave, I hope you'd stay and watch. I'm really happy to see you all came. I'm really happy with the comments and questions. They have a lot to absorb. It's good that you showed up. Okay, this chatter on Facebook isn't always the best. It's better to come face to face just like you're doing. We like to hear it. I'm glad to see you here. They have one heck of a job in front of them recommended to us. I'm glad you guys are respectful about it. I'm glad you understand that. And I will thank Tony for putting out there. I will be making appointments and commissions coming right up by the first of the year. No, I'm serious now. I'd be happy to have any of you step up, send your application in for any openings I have. We have not, besides the planning and zoning, we have park boards, we have a lot of other boards and commissions. It's good to see the community input. I'm glad to see the community input. We need that. We need more of it, not just on once in a while, all the time. So I want to thank you. I want to right now in the public thank the staff. All they're doing is their job. The commission has a tough job. Volunteers, each and every one of them, just ordinary citizens of Sturfield, just like you.
That probably should have been in the open comment period, Mr. Mayor, but we'll consider that. We'll consider that a point of privilege. But again, thank you for those comments as well. With that, if Justin from AWO wouldn't mind coming up and addressing the commission for a little bit of discussion on our part, I think that would be greatly appreciated. I will just offer a reminder to the crowd now that the public hearing is closed. This will be the P&Z asking questions of the applicant, so I would please ask that we don't have any shouting of questions from the audience, and that we allow this discussion to occur. So thank you very much in advance. Questions from the P&Z that we could address to Justin?
Hand the mics over.
And let's pass the mic
Thank you.
back and forth if we could.
Are you able to speak to property management issues at the current property?
I could have somebody from Sun come up and answer any questions that you might have as related to management or operations or.
That would be fantastic.
Sure.
I think we're starting with property management.
This is Kevin Bennett with Sun Community.
Good evening.
Good evening. I just knocked my name tag over. It's just still in front of me. Bob will fix it for me. I'm assuming you heard the comments from residents of the current manufactured home community. Can you speak to those concerns that they've raised? How do you guys address these? What's the timelines that they're supposed to be done in? Why are things not getting done?
Well, from the time that we have purchased this community, we've made a great investment into a number of things. I would start by saying we remodeled the clubhouse, opened pool back up that wasn't working. But many thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in roads. That's an ongoing process of our company. As a matter of fact, we hire Atwell and their engineers to put us on a 10-year road replacement program, which I don't know how many people actually go to that extreme, but we do it. As far as dead trees go, we've had a number of trees die. They're in a process of being removed and will continue to be removed. So it's, without me seeing the specific and individual locations of where there's an issue, it's hard for me to respond to that. I am not at the community level, so it would require me to sit down with them and get into the specifics of each individual question that's come up.
Okay. I will say if we table this matter tonight, it would be helpful to have that person on the ground in at our next meeting to talk to.
That would be fine.
Thank you. And then, did you have something there? That was it? Okay, that's all I have right now.
Do we have any other questions of the applicant or the applicant's representatives right now?
Yeah, I just have my here for you.
I guess I don't really have any direct questions. I'm just kind of curious from one of the representatives, after hearing everything tonight, the thoughts and everything that's going on. Is there ways we can improve and so on for the new development or the proposed development? You know, I guess I don't. You've heard a lot of comments. I mean, do you have any comments to say back to the citizens of Stewartville?
Well, I'd like to think that as a company, that we're a good neighbor. When we buy a community or come into an area and develop a new community, we do our best to improve them. There is always a large capital outlay to bring them up to our standards. Would I say this property's at our standard? No, not yet. It will be. I think if you look overall at the properties, if you go onto our website and look at what we've developed, where we develop, communities that we have taken on, I think that you will always see that we improve everything that we get. That's kind of how we have grown as well as we have. So, is the property going to look better Does it look better than when we got it? Absolutely it does. If somebody in here believes that on the day we bought it, it looked better than today, I would argue that point. But I would also say that it will continue to improve. The new section, I think we have already made some changes with that. That was brought up by a representative from Atwell about widening spaces and so forth. We're open to that. We're not sticking our heels in the mud and saying we're not going to do this or that. We simply try to do the things that make the most amount of sense. So pretty much that's the philosophy of the company. I think that's what you can expect from us in the future.
I'll ask you the question that kind of is like the white elephant in the room here. Affordability has come up over and over and over again. What is your target pricing, say, in the new phase, whether it's 200 units or whatever it's gonna be? Is lot rent still gonna be 400 plus? What is the affordability gonna be?
I think you have to look at it overall compared to stick-built housing and other offerings. We offer essentially, there are a few two-bedroom, two-bath homes that come into the community, not a lot of them. Majority of them are three bedrooms, two baths, probably somewhere between 1,000 to 1,450 square feet. So I think if you take those homes and you compare them with other offerings, both in apartments and single-family homes, you'll see that our cost per square foot is at an advantage. A lot of the residents that come to us because they don't have 20% plunked down on stick-built housing. If your houses are $250,000, it's $50,000 of down payment that they've got to come up with to buy that house. So that's why I think you see as big a draw as there is to manufactured housing. The last phase was filled probably at about 5 homes a month. Some buyers, some renters. Some renters become buyers. We encourage them to buy. We have financing arms and so forth. But they wouldn't buy if it didn't make sense financially. They would simply move on to something else, either rent somewhere else or buy stick-built housing. So everybody's needs are different. We serve a certain section of the population. I think we do it well. And if people weren't interested in us, they certainly wouldn't come.
Would some communities consider reducing the density? And if so, to what extent?
That's not something I can even comment on. I'm not part of the development side. I'm operations. That would be something that would have to be taken up through Atwell and different levels than what I've got.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, my name is Howard Ross, I'm the attorney here for the applicant. That's an issue that I took note of when the question was asked. I think that I need to have a further discussion with the city attorney about that, and then we'll look at that issue and respond to it. We're not prepared to respond to that question.
I'm not the guy that can answer it. Any other questions for me?
Just one more question to clear up everything. How many houses will be or how many manufactured homes will be rentals out there compared to the ones that are sold?
I would have no way of knowing that. A lot of that depends on the market at the time that it starts, what the financing happens to be. Sometimes we'll try to use a different product for those homes that are being sold as opposed to those that end up being rented. And manufacturers change quite a bit as well. So the look of the new property will be probably a little different than the last phase that was put up. I'd like to think nicer, but I couldn't tell you that with any certainty.
Any of the other commission members have any questions for the applicant or applicant's representatives?
You're on a cord.
Not gonna make it.
You can talk about it if you'd like.
Excuse me, pushing the chairman out of the way. There's two definitions of affordable housing, and one of them is what you're talking about, while we're trying to make it affordable to everybody. And then there's others, it's affordable housing subsidized government-wise. How much of that is subsidized in your experience in Atwell?
Well, I was involved with subsidized housing early in my career. I've been in for 35 years, so I would tell you that people seek their own level of affordability. There's Section 8, there's a number of state programs that also do the same type of thing. There's tax programs for developers, but there are people that, our industry, there are people that downsize to us, that retire, sell their homes, take smaller homes with us from an affordability factor. There are entry-level people that come to us, younger people that this is their first place together, and the people that, and of course we run background checks and so forth. It's just not an open door. But the people that can't come into our level of housing would probably then go into subsidized housing in one form or another.
Okay, I guess, would that statistic be possible for us to have as a planning and zoning committee the next time we meet?
I'm not aware of any developments that we have that are subsidized. We're in a number of different states and Canada. There are areas of the country where there are rent controls and so forth. But that would be as close, I think, to being in subsidized housing as we would ever be.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Mary?
Sorry about that. Just a clerical thing, I haven't seen it, maybe it's in the final papers in front of me, but can we please get the dimensions for the park and the storm shelters and the parking in a way I can read them and they're not on an 8.5 by 11 shrunk down magnifying glass blurry.
Oh,
Can I get a copy of that to take home for fun?
Yeah, so the packet that we submitted for our formal application should have all that data in there. And if you can't find it, just let us know. Yeah, point you to the right pieces.
Cool, thank you. And then my other question was, when did Sun Communities take ownership and management of the current park?
I'm guessing, but I would think it would have been probably about 5 years ago.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from the commission tonight?
I have a question for Sheriff Torgerson. You look like you're scared. I have a question for you, Sheriff Torgerson.
Fire away.
Based on the information you gave us earlier, I understand you probably can't say definitively right now, but were we to approve these 300 new lots, would that likely require the city to contract a second officer? Sorry.
It's hard to say. I think the likelihood is yes. And that's why we've been tracking it, and that's why I said earlier, we've been looking at those numbers. You see, this year it's 27% at this point. Of the calls for service are in that community or in that neighborhood out there, 20th Street to the northwest of it. Is that comparatively more than other similar geographic areas of the city? Yes. It was a question that we actually did talk about here recently. I can't remember if it was Bill or if it was the mayor or who. It was city related. And that was that they'd like to see more our deputies downtown and in the residential areas, in the other areas of town. Where are they? We're not seeing traffic stops on Main Street. We're not seeing traffic stops on First Street East or over by the school and such. And one of them that really has generated, those questions have come up in the past, and that has generated why we're doing this and why we're looking at those percentages in that way. And part of the reason is that when we do have some of the calls, and I don't have, which is one of the questions that Luann asked me the other day in regards to this meeting in preparation for it, what are the nature of the calls for service in that area? We don't have a way to break that down. We can tell you what the nature of calls for service are for the city of Stewartville, we can tell you that. And of course, when you have crimes against persons, so a robbery, a theft from a person, an assault, a domestic, you name it, whatever it is, the horrible stuff that people do to each other, that's more than one deputy. We're not, we're going to send more people down here, and so we routinely have deputies that are coming from other areas. We have a power shift now that already comes down and helps and assists. In fact, some of them are here tonight. They might still be. He's back there. He's waving. That's our power shift guy. So he's down there, and that's not part of our contract that we have with the city. That's a whole other deal. So while they're here, they're supporting that, and we're watching those numbers, and we're getting to that point where, as the city grows, and as if this is improved, whether it's here or if it's another part of the city, the calls for service continue to climb, we have to do something. There's no question, because we are spending a lot of time down here. There's generally far more hours of service that Stewartville is getting that is not part of the contract. So hopefully that is probably more than you asked for.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Is there anyone from Public Works here that could speak to the water pressure issue that was raised? Sean here? Sean, I didn't see you back there.
Water pressure is based on the elevation in the tower. The elevation of the towers is maintained to 10 foot. It shouldn't have any effect. We won't have a little residual effect from it. From
Sean, could you come up, please?
Yeah, come
I'm
up.
sorry.
Thank you.
Supposed to just sit here. The water pressure is based on the elevation of the towers. Our elevation in our towers is maintained at 10-foot fluctuation, so the pressure should maintain the same. You will lose a little bit, but there have been pressure tests done on that whole area out there, and there is minimal effect lost. I've been on several of the tests we've done on the flow tests and stuff like that, pressure tests, and the minimal effect from it.
Okay, thank you. And then is there anyone from the fire department here? Bob, Brent? You guys want to talk? Who wants to talk? I just want to ask if the Stewartville Fire Department foresees any issues with this, and or if at this time we have the capacity to take on this size of growth. Thank you.
From a fire standpoint, I don't think it's an issue. We've consistently, and we've talked with the city and other things about our lack of maybe ability to respond to medicals during the day, and that is and will continue to be an issue. That's more of a permanent staffing issue on the fire department. I don't know if we need to address that here today, but if we had 100 more medicals a year, it is going to be at a point when sometime there's going to be some full-time, daytime staff just to probably run that. But from a fire standpoint, I don't think that's an issue. That's my personal opinion, but I have been there for 34 years, so.
I think I'm done. That was my list of questions.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion from the commission this evening?
Mr. Chairman, could we move to make a motion to put this off for 1 month as far as planning and zoning, to evaluate everything we've heard tonight, and to organize it and put it together to see what the real response would be?
So, and I will repeat the motion. To paraphrase it, I think the motion is to request a continuance to a future date. So we do have a motion on the floor for a continuance. And I guess before we would do that, we would put some additional parameters around that. So I would look to city staff for one of the next opportunities. I think that would be beneficial for the audience to know. And so we can also capture that in the motion. Cheryl, a date that we would look at to reconvene.
So your next scheduled meeting would be the first Tuesday of the month, which is December 3rd, but that is also the City Council's Truth and Taxation meeting, which you'll all want to attend. So I would suggest maybe you move your meeting to Monday, December 2nd at 6 p.m. and have it out here again at the Civic Center.
Could we add that to your motion?
That's fine.
So we have a motion for a continuance, and we would reconvene at our next meeting that would fall on Monday, December 2nd. That is the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and we also have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The motion carries for a continuance. We will reconvene on Monday, December 2nd. Before we adjourn, I would like to thank everybody in the audience for joining us tonight. I know it's not easy to get up in front of a group and provide public comment, but truly, as the P&Z goes through this very large stack of information combined with the public commentary tonight, it is greatly appreciated that you came out to be involved and have your voice heard. With that, I will look for a motion to adjourn. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.